I think we should be live. Let's check out this streaming monitor. Oh, there's a person. I see myself. This is exciting. Let's grab the old Twitter here and see what's going on. Live control room. Hello world, if you're watching this. We are live, I think. And I'm here with Robert Stevens Jr. Bobby, how you doing, man?
I'm good. What's going on?
Well, we are in a quarantine, and I figured that'd be a good topic of discussion for today because this is weird. It's unprecedented, obviously. It's just plain weird. Baseball season and softball season is canceled. It's crazy. And you as a business owner, how has this affected you?
It's been nuts. I feel like I'm if you could see my background, my office wall here, I feel like I'm in a little
It's a beautiful
bunker almost.
gray. It's beautiful.
It feels
gray.
like a bunker.
And
Definitely. I mean, it always does, but more so now than ever. I don't have a good explanation for it, honestly. You know, we've got parents that seem to be, very concerned. We've got some families that kind of want an outlet. They want their kids to come, work out. They want to kind of try and keep everything normal, as normal as they can. Kids are off of school, so it's been difficult trying to kind of take the lead of everybody else as far as CDC and what the government's kind of recommending everybody do, kind of stay away from everybody. But it's definitely, driving here to the facility, you can definitely see it's no traffic. Everybody's kind of staying home.
That was what was weird about today. As I walked back from WeWork today, it's like a gorgeous day. It's like 64, like crisp, sunny, blue skies, and there's like no people around.
It's super nice outside.
It's so weird.
I'm walking around outside just to get out of the office space here.
Yeah. So obviously this is strange. I think the big implications, and I've been, I think, following Twitter more than I have recently, and I'm never really that active on Twitter. But this whole like shuffling of fourth year seniors in college now getting it to come back for a year. This has been mostly like, hey, good job NCAA. You guys didn't suck for a minute. You got one thing right, because the NCAA is a lot of their decisions are just baffling and don't put the athletes first. But people are overwhelmingly happy that everyone's getting their year of eligibility back, which makes sense, right? That's the obvious choice. But then again, there's this big shuffling of the deck for the recruiting calendar. Obviously this is like, well, all right, I'm an incoming freshman next year. What does that mean for me? Is there still a scholarship for me? Do I have any chance of getting any playing time? Where do you fall in that?
So I tweeted something out probably about a week ago now where I said how many, the gist of the tweet basically said how many seniors are actually willing to come back, or how many seniors will we see come back, something to that effect, willing to put off real life, willing to take out loans for another year, just a blanket tweet. My overall theme was that it's a shitty situation. And I did get some response from kids still in college. I don't know if they misunderstood what I said, but a lot of them kind of came back at me and said, you'd be surprised how many of us are going to come back, want to come back. And my point was not that they shouldn't want to come back or they aren't going to come back, but I mean, we know baseball, 11.7 scholarships, big rosters, for the kid who's on 25% that goes to a school that's, $40,000 a year, is taking out $30,000 in loans for an additional year of playing, when I would assume the kids that are kind of in that decision-making, in that group of kids that need to make a decision whether they keep playing or not, are the ones that probably are not going to continue to play after college. So do you take on those extra loans? The trickle-down effect, I think, is what we're not going to see until maybe like 2-3 years from now, when rosters are still a little bit log-jammed with some of these freshmen that are going to be, essentially freshmen again next year. At what point do the rosters kind of formulate back to their normal size?
Yeah, and I was talking to our mutual friend Zach Clark about this, who's a scout, and I said, what are you guys going to do as far as scouting? Like, do you do this? Do you guys have to put combines together? He's like, well, obviously the teams are going to do something. He's like, we're not just going to sit around and do nothing. But he's like, look, all the best players have already been scouted. He's like, everyone who's really, 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 really good, we've seen them many, many, many times, right? So the top guys in the draft, none of these scouts are like, oh, I got to go see, this potential second rounder again. Or like, no, they have plenty of information. They've been like, no one just becomes a first round draft pick in the last couple months, right? So all these really high caliber players, they're fine. Like these teams know kind of who they're taking.
No doubt.
But for everyone else, there's probably going to be combines put together. There's probably going to be a lot more scouts going to private showcases. Just like, hey, if you have a facility, of course, now most facilities are closed. So that throws another wrinkle in it. But of course, we're still months away from the potential typical, June draft, which also might get pushed back. You never know. So there's just, it's really interesting, these wide range, and I'm sure people are freaking out, but it's just going to have to be like a holding pattern for a while, no matter what age your kid is, no matter where you're falling into that fold, whether you're, like I have one kid in college now, he's a freshman and his season obviously just got chopped. And then the other one he's a junior, just transferred to Tulane University, and they were having a good season. I mean, he was having a good season. I mean, lots of players are having good seasons, and junior year's draft year, that's your big leverage year. So it's like, okay, well, like he's not a guy who's on that radar, that level of radar where they know who he is and he was going to get drafted really high. He's someone who has a really good season, probably opens a lot of eyes in a good conference, and maybe gets his chance, right? So like for a lot of guys like that, and it's a weird position that they're going to be put in, and they just need to stay in shape, I guess. I mean, I'm sure you've had a lot more guys reach out to you than me. Your organization is a lot bigger than mine. And do you want to introduce yourself real quick and give some people who are 7 minutes in a little background about you?
Yeah, I mean, anybody that doesn't know me, I played with Dan. I played professionally, have a youth organization in Chicago. We have a facility out here. We've got college guys, pro guys that come in and work out here. I have had some guys reach out. There's been a few pro guys, a lot of the college guys that are back have reached out, and they don't really know what to do at this point. I know that colleges, it seems like, have pretty much banged the whole year. But, at the risk of, holding out hope, they still want to stay in shape. And what do? They want to come work out. I'm a little hesitant to have more than 5-6 people in here at a time, just for the safety of everybody.
Yeah.
So it's not an easy situation.
Yeah, well, especially places. I mean, you said Chicago's nice today, but Chicago's typically like blizzard conditions until what, like August. So, it's tough.
Pretty much. So pretty much, there's no summer. It goes right spring to fall.
Yeah, Chicago weather, love it. I mean, with the warmer climates, it's a lot easier. Like you can go out and find some place in isolation to go throw, right? It's a little easier, but if it's still really cold, if you're in the Northeast, if you're in just the north half of the country in general, it could still be pretty crummy outside. And if you can't go use an indoor facility, then you might not have that many options, even though it's March. But I mean, even here in Maryland and DC, like March is a pretty questionable time of year where it's not super nice out. It's obviously nice enough where you can get outside, but pretty miserable a lot of the times. But like, Minnesota, the Dakotas, I mean, Chicago even, I mean, you guys could get snow anytime this month. That's not abnormal for you.
Yeah, and if the sun's not out, it's definitely cooler here. You don't want to be outside. Even if you can, you still, being in the comfort of an indoor facility is nice when you're in this part of the country, but how do you balance that with staying, keeping your distance from everybody else, not touching, even the same surfaces as other people? Like, what do you do?
We need like baseballs that are wrapped in like you tear open one sanitary baseball, you pitch it, then you throw in the trash.
You just he's got a sanitizer in the glove.
Exactly, yeah. Which you're gonna have to. I mean, Purell, everyone.
Are you hoarding it? Because I can't find any anywhere.
I don't want to admit this live, but I stole it from a bathroom. I couldn't find any either. But
this is martial law.
In my own defense, it wasn't It was untouched for a number of days. So I was like, look, someone's going to take this. There's no one in this building even. I'm a bad person. I realize this, but it's better here in my house rather than locked up in the building when they close down. So
no, it's desperate times. What about that guy?
I'm admitting that I'm a bad person. I'm admitting that I am.
You're
so just
fine.
Save everyone's judgment out there in Twitter universe. But no, that's a real problem.
Did you see the guy that had like 18,000 bottles of it?
Yeah, I love how I read that article and he tried to justify it as saying that, well, like these people think I'm marking it up like, my cost, like there's my time, there's all these other costs involved. It's like, that's not how selling products works, you idiot. Your cost is not getting factored into once you buy and resell, like you driving around Tennessee to, spending 20 hours of your time driving around hoarding all of these, you don't get to factor that into the price of a product.
I don't think he's getting enough credit for being the forward thinker when he saw this how many days or weeks in advance.
Let's not call him a forward thinker. Let's call him someone who's capitalizing on the misfortune of others. That's really what it is. It's one thing if it's like you bought them for $3 and you're selling them for $4. I think that's stomachable by a lot of people.
What was he selling it for?
Like a 10% markup. Like this 8-ounce bottle, probably like $40. He said he's selling some things for like $70. It's outrageous. Come on.
And then he ended up donating it.
Well, he seemed very reluctant to do that, but I think that was probably, and a lot of questions were, well, why did this person let his name be used in this article? It's like, hey, everyone throw stones at me. I'm terrible.
Famous.
I'm the worst.
How else are you going to get famous?
Yeah, that's
viral famous.
Nonetheless, but I think we should go into this sanitary baseball business. Maybe some sort of we breed cows that are antibiotic resistant. Get these baseballs out there. We'd have to get the cost down to like 14 cents a baseball. Probably unrealistic.
Made in the USA.
But the idea, the fact that baseballs are still hand stitched is crazy. Like if we get some robot to stitch our baseballs, which we're going to have robots flipping our burgers, driving our cars. This whole like Johnny Cab thing from Total Recall is going to be in our near future, which I'm excited for. But the fact that we still have to hand stitch baseballs just kind of blows my mind.
It's nice though. It makes it like a throwback. They're all stitched by hand. And doesn't one woman down for Rawlings, who makes the MLB baseball, Rawlings?
Yeah.
One woman wraps every single baseball that's pitched in the big leagues.
I haven't heard that, but I wouldn't.
I heard that like a year ago that one woman is responsible for wrapping everyone.
Well, they're made in the Major League ball's made in Costa Rica. All the other ones are made in China. So, and the Costa Rica plant's like not enormous from what I've seen, but
apparently it's just one woman.
God bless her. Beatrix, wherever you are,
you're cornered the market.
Phenomenal. You're phenomenal.
She could really demand a raise.
Well, and that brings up the issue of just, we've got teams stealing signs and we've got all this variance between baseballs, which is not huge, but it's enough to make a pretty big difference in today's game. So
definitely.
And the real winners of the coronavirus, unfortunately, are the Astros because all the heat has been taken off of them and they deserve to be shamed the entire year. They deserve relentless shame.
I was
right
really
now,
looking
no one's paying
forward
attention.
to it.
Well, we're going to get through this eventually, but people just need to remember how much shame they deserve when we do get back to baseball. We can't be too excited just to be out there. We need to remember, like, hey, keep your eye on the prize and make sure we relentlessly boo and shame the Astros.
That's what Twitter's for. Keep everybody in remember.
Well, I think we all need to put on our Google Calendar, like put a reminder in there for like June 15th. It's like, hey, ratchet up your indignance again for what the Astros did. And just the utter lack of humility by all of them. You don't expect people to apologize, but at the same time, there was just like such a spoiled smugness from so many of them. Especially Alex Bregman. He just came off as a spoiled little kid. That's the worst. And then it's the same whole thing where everyone's like, well, what about the Yankees? What about the Dodgers? Like, it doesn't matter. Like, what you did was egregious. And that's just like the society today, just passing the blame. Oh, well, this person, which is not how anyone disciplines their own kids. You know, like your kid, gets in trouble in school. You don't go to the principal, hey, like, well, what about this other kid who did this thing that was worse a week ago? You just punish your kid and try to teach him right from wrong objectively about what happened, right?
Right.
And that's what's happening in politics, and it's what's happening with the Astros, and they just want to. It's weird because a lot of people who really like baseball, who are really big baseball fans, it's like if you don't realize the magnitude of what they did, it's like you don't really understand the game enough. Like if you think it's like, it's not that big a deal, like you just don't understand the game enough. How many like careers it really did ruin? I mean, that one guy who's suing.
I mean, how much better would some of these guys be if they knew what was coming? Mike Trout had a funny little interview. I don't know if you saw that, where he just basically commented on how much fun he would have if he knew it was coming. I mean, that's what separates guys that make it to the big leagues from minor leaguers, essentially. I mean, you give an average college player this, what every pitch is coming, he's going to be a first rounder.
Well, and even for someone like me, like I couldn't hit pro pitching, but if I was a pitcher and I suddenly got at bats every fifth game, like a National League hitter, like a National League pitcher, if I get at bats every fifth game, my eyes would start to adjust. I would be taking much more respectable hacks over time. And then if I knew what pitch was coming, you'd better believe I'd hit 5 or 10 jacks a season. Because fastball's coming, I'm getting it. I don't care if it's 98. I'm going to get started real early and ambush that thing. And if you're like athletic enough, absolutely. I mean, you'd have pitchers. Madison Bumgarner would hit 20 jacks if he knew every pitch that was coming. So he'd lay off the sliders and he'd go nuts when he gets a fastball. And I'm not saying I'd hit 10 home runs in the big leagues, but people that have some level of baseball hand-eye coordination, can swing a bat, see enough repetition, they're going to succeed so much more, especially the guys that would hit 200. They're going to have a huge boost in their batting average. It's crazy.
Yeah, I don't think people understand how important it is to, you have, even if you have one at-bat a game where you know what's coming, guys that hit 270, 280 stay in the big leagues. Guys that hit 240 get shipped off or can't find jobs. And those, 30 points in your batting average, 3 home runs a year or whatever, whatever it would equate to, knowing what's coming. I mean, I remember playing and we knew one guy in the Atlantic League, he pitched for York. I just remember this because he threw a splitter and he would flare the glove big time. No, totally tipping his pitches. Yeah. And knowing that splitter was coming was like cheating. I mean, it was like cheating because he only had 2 pitches. He threw splitter, fastball.
Yeah.
So if he wasn't throwing that splitter, which everybody chased, then you knew you were getting a fastball. And we lit him up, a couple outings in a row. And then obviously we go away and we come back and play him. And, when they're bullpen guys, you don't see them all that much. And sometimes their stuff's so good that it doesn't matter if you know what's coming.
Yeah.
Mariano Rivera type. But it makes a huge difference when he's got 2 pitches that are both plus pitches and you don't have to worry about one of them.
Yeah, absolutely. Or you say, all right, I know a splitter's coming. If I see it take that upward trajectory out of his hand, I'm going to mash it because I know it's a hanger. And if it's straight, it's dead to me. I'm Xing it out. I mean,
it's cheating. I mean, it's totally cheating. There's no way 2 ways around it.
Yeah, and it just the idea that it doesn't matter that other teams are doing it, that makes it okay, or that makes it less of a big deal. Everyone's doing it. It's patently not everyone's doing it. Like that's just definitely not, especially not to the degree that they were, and as like smug as they were about it. And you hear just like Luno completely taking no responsibility, acting like he didn't know. AJ Hinch like acting indignant, like, oh, I tried to stop it. Like, no, you didn't. And then you went on, in the postseason and, scoffed at the Yankees, like pointing their fingers, basically accusing you of it. It's like, come on, man. Like that was, I think, the worst part of all of it. And it's just that whole conspiracy. Yeah. Because, you go back to it, like Kevin Costner's quote in Bull Durham, 25 hits is the difference between hitting 250 and 300. 25 hits.
One a week.
Yeah. If you know a pitch is coming, you don't think you're going to get maybe 15, 20 extra hits in the course of a whole season? You're going to barrel a lot more balls up, that's for sure. A lot more barrels, lots more hits.
Right.
So how do you feel as a baseball academy owner? You are mostly shuttered right now, if not going to be completely shuttered soon. Where are you at on that?
I don't want to say it came at a good time, but
this is down season, right?
It's it's getting towards the tail end of the winter training. As any chance 45 degrees or above, teams are going outside right now. Even our youth teams are trying to get outside. So there is no good time when you're a facility owner. You have an indoor space and you basically have a 4-month window to kind of pack everybody in, utilize it. It's tough. Some guys are still coming in doing one-on-one. We stayed open for one-on-one stuff, but it's all new. It's wait and see. I mean, we had people in here on Sunday, rentals and everything. And yesterday was really the first day. I kind of shut the door and locked it and just told everybody, I will let them know how we're going to proceed forward. I'm going to take the week and just kind of assess, see what happens, clean the place, got lightheaded a few times, spraying the equipment down, but it's spotless in there.
I'm trying to figure out how to respond to chats here. So if you're out there on Periscope or if you're on YouTube, you can leave a chat here on the live stream. So Mike, I see your chat, but I don't know how to respond to it at the moment. So Bobby and I have been toying around with the idea of starting a podcast. The last month, we've been back and forth on names and on topics. And to be perfectly honest, we haven't settled on what we want to talk about. But we want to stay in the baseball niche, but we both also have a lot of other interests. So we're kind of trying to figure this out. But and I personally think
please comment your podcast idea names.
Yeah, what were our names? So today the one idea was the Salty Veteran, which is actually a taken podcast name. It's dormant, so they stopped recording after like 2018. So, but I did search that today. What were some of the other ones? I don't even remember. None of them really. Aggressive take. All right, that's not bad.
Yeah, some of them are not safe for TV.
But I think the good thing about Bobby and I is we're both outsiders where we can criticize the system a little bit. And because I'm not in love with, I mean, let's be honest, I love baseball and I love so many aspects of it and what it's done for my life. And I'm obviously still a big part of it. But there's a lot of things in baseball that are changing that I just do not like. And there's a lot of things that are broken, I think, in the system. There's a lot of things that are broken in the way kids are getting brought up in the game. In the college system, like I'm very outspoken about pitch calling. I think there needs to be a large shift towards letting kids call the game and not just the default is you're never going to be able to call the game because coach knows better. And so, in throwing the idea around for another podcast, if, you're a pro scout, say, or I'm a college coach, we both need to kind of be censored, right, and play the game a little bit. And personally, right. I'm not this person who's cynical, who just wants to tear down the system all day. That's certainly not what I am. In fact, the only people that I really block on Twitter are people who just spew negativity constantly. I block a couple prominent people in the baseball industry, not because I hate them, because I certainly don't, just because I don't want to see your tweets all the time. If other people are retweeting it, it's just negative, fighting people, combative. Bobby, I don't block you, but I just don't need that in my life. I kind of like Twitter, and I kind of it's kind of like my news feed. And I don't want to see this constant this guy doesn't get it. This guy's just trying to be an agitator. To blah, blah, blah. I don't need that every day. And I'm not that kind of person either. At least I don't think I am. So, but at the same time, we're both outsiders to everything. You work for yourself. I work for myself. I don't think either of us have tremendously controversial opinions, but there's just a lot of stuff, a lot of the way things are being done. I think there's just a lot of stuff that's broken in our game right now.
Yeah. It's funny, yeah, the negativity. Like I'm on Twitter, basically steamrolling ahead for the baseball guy, for the guy that's either been in the game, that has some experience. I constantly go after the data crowd, the guys that use the technology, not because I think it's useless. I actually think it's very useful. Like there's a lot of stuff in baseball that's new, that's useful, but it's not the gold standard, and it's not now this is here, so that is irrelevant.
Hmm.
It's like the experience. I don't like where the narrative comes in of your experience does not hold water to what this computer just told about my spin rate, or the ball off the bat. And I tweeted
Agreed.
something that I think rings true, is that the baseball has always been the best data. You know, the you're a pitcher, you throw a bullpen, like what that ball does is, hey, what the baseball does is your data. You know, and fooling around with grips and how everybody did it before there was a video camera on and reading the spin, that is the data. Batting practice, where the ball went, how the ball went there, ball flight, that was the data. It's not
Yeah.
new. It's just a new way of collecting it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I know we kind of went off on a tangent here, but I have strong opinions on a lot of things in baseball, and I'm not necessarily against what I'm speaking out on, but there's two ways to look at a lot of things. So to come at it with just one hard line, you either buy into this or you're falling behind. I don't see that as productive in sports or life, whatever, anything you're
Yeah.
doing, any walk of life.
Yeah. I mean, because all this stuff it feels like a lot of it is the way you jump into a profession or you jump into something right out of college and you don't really know anything yet. You think you do, but you don't really know much at all. I mean, I look back at my own baseball career. I'm sure you're the same way, that I didn't know anything about pitching when I was 21. I just didn't. I wish, like, you go back and you think you did, but you just didn't. And everyone feels the same way
Right.
about every 5-year chunk of their career. And it's just, and again, I think everyone, for the amount of people that, agitate you or make me irritate on Twitter, most people are great. Most people are good. They're listening. They're
No
just
doubt.
taking stuff in. It's always just a couple people that are, you're like, oh, and then you feel like this is everyone's opinion. And it's really not. Really, it's just most people are absorbing it, trying to figure out earnestly what they need to do because they're following your lead and some other guy's lead and some other guy's lead. And like, do I use this? This is new. Should I do it? Should I invest my time in this? And as a, coach, of a 14U team who maybe didn't play college or pro baseball, I'm sure you're just trying your best to figure out what you should be doing because it's confusing. It's super confusing, especially for a college guy. If you're like a 6 foot, 190-pound college third baseman, like you're an average sized dude, like you're strong, but you're not like big league built, right? Should you
Right.
be trying to hit the ball out of the yard? Should you be like really trying to optimize your launch angle and go from 8 home runs, which is probably what a 190-pound guy hits, to 14? Is that like your game? Should you do that? That's a really good question, because if you aren't good enough, you don't make enough hard contact to actually get the ball out of the air when you start lifting it, then you hurt yourself. Then you go from hitting 290 to hitting 260 because you're hitting balls as a warning track that just aren't going to make it. And so then I think a lot of this is like, hey, who am I as a player? It's really confusing. Should I, like, people try to fit into this new box, you don't want to get left behind. And yet, if you try to fit yourself in a new box, maybe getting farther away from who you actually are. I think when you're a monster, it's easier to put yourself into like, I should do this or I should do that, or I throw 97, so I should focus on this now. But when you're in like that middling category, if you're a pitcher today who's like 88 to 92, what do you do to like succeed and get someone's attention? Because you got to get a lot of people out, right? Or if you're an average size Division I third baseman, what do you do to stand out in the crowd? You're not going to hit 20 jacks, and you're not going to hit 20 jacks in pro ball either, So
It's a good question. I don't
what
know
do you
what I don't
do?
know what that kid does. I don't know
You know,
what
and
I don't
people
know what
like
he's supposed
Jose,
to do.
yeah,
Hit
and
the
people
ball
like,
farther.
Yeah, like you're a good example. How tall are you? You 5'9", 5'10"?
Oh, easy guy. 5'11".
I'm taller
6
than
foot
you.
on the baseball card.
I'm taller than you, aren't I? I feel like I'm taller
Probably.
than
How
you.
tall are you?
5'11" or 6 foot. Playing height of 6 foot.
I'm a legitimate 5'11".
Are you? Well, I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure I'm taller than you. I did measure at 6 foot like 4 years ago, which didn't make a lot of sense because I've been 5'11" most of my life. But anyway, you're an average size dude. You're like 5'11", what, 180 pounds, 185 pounds?
I'm 192,
Yeah. So
193.
you're the guy I was talking about. Like, could you hit 20 home runs in the big leagues?
With the juice baseball now? No doubt.
Okay, that's not the answer I was going for, but my point is
Well, here's a good thing. Back when I played, no, obviously, like I think my high was 9 in a season, but
mhm.
I feel like from what I've learned from the time I stopped playing to now, I think absolutely my swing would have been so much, because strength was never an issue of mine. I was always
Yeah, you're strong,
physically
very strong for your size.
very strong. So, not just with my size compared to anybody on the team, I was always weight room strong. So why didn't that translate into, like you said, 25 home runs a year? Like some of it's leverage, some of it's, pitch recognition, some of it's, I was fast, play to your strength type deal. But I think from what I've learned about my swing, like I wasn't getting enough out of it. I didn't have a swing that was strong relative to my actual strength. So, to kind of go back to that is a guy my size, like you said, third base, if I'm playing third base, I've got to hit home runs. I mean, that's
you're
just
a
the
little
nature.
guy if you're playing third base. You'd be 6'3" to
Nature
play
of the
third base now.
defensive specialist.
Yeah.
But the nature of the position is power. I mean, you're not playing first. There's no Mark Grace type first baseman anymore for those people that remember Mark Grace. The 320 hitter with
barn door swing, just peppering the ball around the field.
Runs.
Yeah.
Like you need to put the ball out of the yard, or you need to find a different position. That's just the real interesting thing I find in baseball now is with this automated, the Atlantic League's using the automated strike zone. I feel like you're going to see a lot more guys transition to being catchers that can really hit but have no other position. Where catchers historically been a defensive position. I mean, if you could hit as a catcher, Yasmani Grandal, you are the best player at your position, bar none. And now, if the strikes are just going to be automatic, doesn't matter if you catch the ball, doesn't matter if you frame it.
Yeah.
That position is going to drastically change, especially with stolen bases got to be at all-time lows. So people aren't running as much. You don't need to frame the ball. You're talking a total shift in how you look at a position on a baseball field.
Yeah. Alexa, do you think they'll get rid of Alexa, do you think they'll go to automated strike zone next year?
I don't know.
She doesn't know. What does she know? She's worthless. Fine.
Just
stop. Just do nothing over there.
She's
just listening to this whole
everything
conversation. Yeah, I'm gonna get ads for catcher's thumbs and catcher's mitts and automated strike zone equipment if that exists. We get a TrackMan ad.
It will now.
Yeah. Alexa, power down. Stop listening. Appreciate you. Yeah, I mean that's one of those interesting happenings in baseball, because I think the automated strike zone is going to happen at some point. It's just people get more and more outraged by it. I personally don't. I think it's fine. I mean, I think there's just a certain amount of variance built into life and bad luck and good luck that you can't ever just strip out of baseball. And like, look, a bad call here and there, like it's always going to average out over the course of a game or a month or a season, and certainly a career. But at the same time, when people are like, well, that did cost us a postseason game and maybe a World Series, and that costs our organization $100 million, then I get it, because that one call, like with the replay and all this other stuff, like let's just get the calls right if we can. And so then you're like, yeah, you've catchers, huh?
It's the beauty of the game. Isn't that the pageantry of baseball?
I think it is the beauty of the game if we make our umpires be better. I mean, and obviously they are very good, but when we have some of these umpires who are tenured, who are just flatly terrible, but we're just like not getting rid of them because they've been there for 30 years, that's a problem. Like if you really want to do like don't go to the automated strike zone, then you have to just like, and this is going to happen in the education system. You know, like one of the podcasts that I listen to is Pivot with Scott Galloway and Kara Fisher, and Scott talks a bunch. He's a professor about how broken the tenure system is. That now we're paying these college professors $150,000 a year forever, and many of them, not all of them certainly, because I'm not making this generalization, but many of them just like, all right, I got my ticket, here I am, can't get rid of me, and that's going to demotivate a lot of people. And so if you really want to have umpiring be as good as it possibly can be and not go to automated, I think you have to hold these umpires to a much higher like review board and really audit what they're doing. Because otherwise you just like continue to have these questions like, why is this clearly bad umpiring this important game? And that's a question that just should never have to be answered. Shouldn't have to be asked. Yeah. Because, yeah, like, you know, like depending on the level you're playing at, your umpire is just going to be bad. Just expect them to be bad. Like they're going to do their best and they're human beings and they're people and they can't be perfect, but just expect them to not be perfect and just move on about it. Right. You know, don't get in a beer soaked fight in the bleachers because, you know, your 14U team, you know, umpire just hosed you guys and you're not going to get to game 9 of your tournament.
Yeah. The 15-year-old umpire didn't catch the corner quite how you wanted him to.
Yeah, by the 5th or 6th game of a summer tournament, when I'm out of pitching, I'm like hoping we lose a game by a blown call. It's like, please, just like ring this guy up here so we don't tie the game, so I don't have to overuse a pitcher tomorrow. Just like something happened, just intervene, please. But anyway, I digress. You know, it's a weird. There's just a lot of weird things going on in baseball and changing, and not all of it's good. So I don't know. I think the biggest thing that parents and young coaches need is really just like a way to cut through and say, okay, what do I actually need to know? And what's actually important to like help these kids enjoy baseball, have a long career that they really feel is rewarding to them. And they're learning the right things at each level, which again, I think learning to call your own pitches is one of those things, but you know, topic for another day. Yeah, I don't know.
I know you want to get into it. I'm on your side for this one, so
I would love to get into it. Well, it's such a baffling and like silly thing, and I think a lot of people make themselves self-important, saying, "I know how to call this better," and it's not always just even about whether you can or can't. Like I know I could call a good game, and I think there should be some indication when I know I didn't invent baseball. I didn't invent pitching. I'm just another smart pitching guy on the web, and you can like my point of view or not, but I know I'm not a stupid pitching guy. And so when at least one smart pitching guy says, I could call a better game than my kids for sure, and I could for sure give my team a better chance of winning by doing that, but I still choose not to, I think that's an opinion worth listening to. And again, you can discard my opinion because you don't, like, I'm just one person. But at the same time, right, when there is a percentage of people that have been around the game enough, that know the game, that genuinely care about players' development, who are saying, this isn't the way this should be done, even though everyone else does this, then I think that's an opinion worth considering. And so that's why, like, I don't care about saying it on the web, because again, what are you going to do? Like, I don't have an academy anymore. I sold it in August. You're going to fire me? Just don't listen. I don't care.
My big question is, what's the downside of letting the 15U catcher call the game? Other than
there is no downside.
I would say, other than the wins and losses, which shouldn't matter at that point in that situation. I mean, guys that are getting college coaches that call their own game, or that call the game from the dugout, that's how you make your money. That's your livelihood. You're in the business of winning. You're at a Power 5 school. Fine. You can at least make an argument to justify it. But if we're talking about the 15-year-old kid and the 15-year-old catcher that are going to be, playing on their freshman team, playing summer games, let that kid call the game. That kid needs to, if that kid's got any future, in baseball, at the professional level, at least, he's got to call his own game. So I'm not saying every kid has got a future professionally. You hope they do. Most won't, but that's real development there. There is no
Yeah.
downside for that kid to call his own game, or,
No.
or the pitcher to call his own game and learn from the mistakes that he made and become better at pitching. Because the kids that are engaged that want to get better. And if
Yeah.
you're just blindly calling pitches from the dugout, not blindly educated for whatever your reasoning is, that kid is just seeing whatever's put down, knows he has no choice, and just throws it. There's
Yeah.
no critical thinking involved.
Yeah. Well, I mean, again, this is a topic for another show, but imagine, I mean, I don't like using analogies because there's plenty of evidence and plenty of, I think, good logical reasoning without using an analogy. But a good analogy is Google Maps. When you drive around town and you're just listening to turn left 500 feet, turn right, you're not looking at the buildings. You're not looking at the street signs. You're just listening for the next direction. And you don't learn the map of the city, of the new place you're in, nearly as fast as if you're like, okay, Bobby said I've got to go turn left at this big brick church, and that's, Elmwood Street, and then I've got to go 6 blocks and there's a 7-Eleven, and then I got to take a right on Fern Street. You're going to be very aware of how far you're driving, the topography, the color of the building. You're looking for landmines. You're looking for things. And as a pitcher, your job to call your own good pitches is looking for, how did the hitter swing? How did the hitter take? What is the look in the hitter's eyes? Who is the hitter? How big is he? What part of the order is it? What's the situation? Who's on deck? What's this guy done this game? That's stuff that you have to pay really good attention to, in addition to pinging your teammates and asking your bullpen mates and your catcher for all as much information as you can get. So when you're out there in the 8th inning of a 2-1 game and a guy who's coming up to 2 doubles today, what's the pitch call, Dan, and why? And I have a good reason, because I've been charting it out in my mind, watching all those things. But when coach says, call this, they think that they're educating you by giving you the answer first, but really they're just saying, turn left in 500 feet. And then you commit to making the pitch, and you don't have to look at any of the other reasons. And I think as a pitcher who's been on the mound and had games where that were called for me, you're just not. Why do I need to look at the hitter if I know I'm throwing a fastball away? Like, I don't, and you don't. That's not how humans work, And so I think a lot of us, when we lose our phones, we can't navigate around a city. I know, I'm fresh to DC. I've lived here a month. And I'm learning more about it. DC is a confusing city, even though the streets are all lettered, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. They all go in one direction. All the numbered streets go in another direction. So if you're on, 7th and L, and you need to get to 14th and S, you know which way to go based on the way the streets, the numbers rise and the letters rise or fall.
Right.
But even then, it's complicated if you're just never looking at the street signs. You're never actually wondering, okay, where am I? Like, which way do they go? If you're just Google Mapsing it, it takes a really long time, especially in a city that, like, there's not that many super tall buildings. So a lot of things look alike on a street corner here in DC. It's hard. But you learn it faster when you're having to pave your way and figure out how to get home a little more, rather than just pulling up your map and saying, all right, I'm going to walk straight for a while, then take a right. So
it kind of goes back to, I can remember being younger, and if you wanted to call one of your friends, you had his phone number memorized, and I would.
Yeah, I don't know my family's phone numbers anymore hardly. If I lost my phone, I can't contact anybody.
I'm curious to ask, how many, could you call one of your parents by pure memorization?
My parents, I could, only because I have to once in a while use their like type in their phone number at the grocery store to use their like club card, because I've lived in the Midwest for so long that none of the grocery stores on the East Coast, I haven't used any of those grocery stores in like 10 years. So I don't have like a club membership, but now there's like a Safeway, which is the one by my parents' house. And there's Giant, which was a grocery store I grew up with. So I don't have little shoppers cards from them. So I use my parents' phone number because I don't feel like getting the stupid card. So that's literally the only reason I know my parents' phone number. Like, obviously it was my childhood phone number, but I don't know my mom's cell number. I don't know my dad's cell number. I don't know my sister's cell number. I don't know literally one person's cell number. I just don't. So, yeah, I think there's something to be said for all that. So what do you think of the travel ball season? Do you think it's going to be, I mean, obviously we're just guessing here, but with these tournament companies, and this is another thing that I'm sure both of us are outspoken about, is the way tournament companies treat travel baseball as just this way to like basically just shake you upside down until your pockets are free of any money.
Yeah.
How are they
A lot
going
of
to
shaking
react to
around.
all this? How are they going to react to this, Robert?
I don't see any change in the summer travel season, at least right now. We're little less than 3 months away from tournament number one for most of the high school age groups. You know, unless there's something catastrophic, I can't imagine that they're just gonna cancel weekends. I mean, some of these weekend tournaments for some of these, larger facilities. I mean, Westfield, Indiana, and Kansas City's got a big one. Georgia. You're talking a couple $100,000 going through that facility in a weekend, any given weekend.
Yeah.
That's big time. That's big business. That's no longer youth baseball. That's a for-profit business, which is fine because we all, we need places to play. They're providing it. I have no issue with them charging money or
Mm-hmm.
charging a gate fee, but I can't imagine that they're gonna just say, hey, you know, we're a little concerned about you being around other people, so we're not going to play. I think it's going to be very much proceed with caution. You know, if you're sick, stay home. Use precautionary measures. Wash your hands. But the game goes on.
Yeah, and I would tend to agree. I mean, obviously, we have no idea what this is going to look like in the next couple of weeks. There might be a huge
Right.
spike in coronavirus cases, but I mean, caveat is that they closed Major League Baseball. They closed the NBA. I mean, Westville, Indiana is pretty big, but it ain't as big as one Major League Baseball game. A lot of these big businesses are closed. So,
Well, I think the difference with those, what you said is that you're talking, Bulls versus Lakers draws 20,000 plus in a, you're elbow to elbow with somebody, whereas at Westfield, there are a bunch of fields, but you don't need to be next to anybody per se. There's social distancing, I guess you would call it, what everyone's calling it. You're
mhm.
outside and in the air. I mean, even a Cubs game that's got 45,000 at it, uh, you're right up next to somebody. Where if there's 45,000 people at Westfield, they're spread over 50 acres of
Yeah,
surface, and it's different. I'm not saying better or worse. I understand where Major League Baseball is coming in, and uh, professional sports has to look out for their own behind, essentially. Like they don't want to. Who knows if there's, in the era of lawsuits, what could happen? You've got players that are getting sick. Those players are those are your assets. I mean,
yeah,
those guys go down. The couple guys on the Jazz I just saw right before we got on, that Kevin Durant, and that, even though he's not playing, 4 guys from the Nets have coronavirus. Even if they're healthy, walking around, no symptoms, those guys are worth hundreds of millions of dollars to the teams and into their revenue, their bottom line. So, their safety is probably, as terrible as it sounds, probably worth more than maybe the summer tournament where kids aren't affected. It doesn't seem like kids are affected according to everything that's been said. You know, it doesn't affect kids nearly as much as affect the elderly and,
yeah,
immune, compromised people.
yeah. Well, it's the high five culture. You can't give your grandparents a high five or you're gonna be in trouble. So that's the unfortunate problem. And then there's people who are like me. Like I have asthma, so I'm in the at-risk group where I could just have a respiratory complication from it. And so you just don't know with some of those guys. A lot of these even high-level athletes are just like me, where they have exercise induced asthma, which I pretty much outgrew. So I have like almost no issues from it ever. But once in a while, like a really terrible allergy season, and I'll be kind of like at 67% lung capacity, which if any of you out there listening are asthmatic, the feeling where your lungs aren't at full capacity. You just can't pull in all of your air. And it's a
Right.
little scary. And that's what's happening to some people where their lungs are just not doing well in this with this virus. So that's definitely a scary thing, and you just don't want to assume, I guess, with anyone, even with myself. So yeah, I mean, it's a weird thing, and obviously, like the mortality rates are still low, but they're still changing. Like, they don't really know what's going on, and so everyone just has to be super cautious. And I get that, and you don't want to be the one group out there. Like, I knew as soon as the Patriot League or the Ivy League canceled, I'm like, everyone else is gonna cancel too. Like, there's no way other conference athletic directors are going to be like, oh yeah, no, we're gonna be the one that keeps, like, no, everyone's going to take their kids off the field, which is tough.
Right.
But I mean, it's the conservative thing to do. And obviously a week later, it's a non-issue because everything's shut down. It's crazy. But yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see the ripple effect of just the college athletics world, how that shakes out with kids coming back. Because like you said, I don't, doubling back to the seniors thing, on the one hand, you only get so many years to play any collegiate sport. So if you get another year to do it, like, you're not going to get that year back. You're probably not going to regret that. But you're right, that debt load, 20, 30 grand, because you can't get another degree in your fifth year. I mean, I did this. I went back for my fifth season, and my school was not nearly as costly. And I'm lucky that I have amazing parents who saved, and they paid for my college education. But I went back for my fifth year to rehab from Tommy John, and I took on a double major, but that really didn't change my career, especially considering I majored in philosophy. So, I took a second major. I got psychology on there too. So the two most useless majors in America. Actually very useful, very useful. Actually, I am very happy with my education, but you don't become an accountant if you get a philosophy degree. It's just like, there's no like career track, obviously. And psychology, right, the track is to get your PhD or to get your master's before you really, I think, have like the salary that you'd want. So just different. But yeah, I mean, it's just going back for a fifth year where you're not going to get a second degree out of it. You're not going to get your master's done. That's a tough. And I think for a lot of players, if you're not going to get drafted, it's hard to stomach the season just being chopped. But at the same time, I bet in 3 weeks, a lot of them are going to come to terms with the fact that, yeah, it was going to come to fruition next year. Might as well be time to walk away now.
Yeah, I was talking with somebody yesterday about it. I'd be interested to see the guys that have graduated, especially at the lower levels, like a D2 or a D3, star player, if any of those guys transfer. And because those transfer rules, I assume, will change as far as if you have your degree, you're allowed to transfer to any school. I'm not saying it's going to be common or it's going to happen, but a school of a Division I, like a middling Division I, that could pick up a top level D2 arm or a Division III All-American who's graduated, what's the situation? Are they allowed to transfer? Or is that going to be, is this redshirt year have to be used at the school you're currently at?
Yeah, that's a good question.
I really think who it affects the most, I really think is high school seniors, because those kids are not getting their senior season back. They're not getting their varsity season back. They're not staying in high school again for another year. They are just moving on into a logjam college system and basically told, like, we don't know what's going to happen, but, you're supposed to walk on the campus and be our starting catcher. And now our senior catcher who was supposed to get drafted is back.
Yeah.
So the situation, like, what do you do?
It's crazy, man. I don't know. There's a lot of implications for it. It really is complicated. I think especially with softball, and obviously there's other spring sports too. I don't really think I'm not going to get into my feelings on lacrosse, but there's other sports too. But like with softball, like the vast majority of those girls aren't going pro, and they know that. They knew that a while ago. Obviously, some are in the big Power 5 conferences, but it's a much smaller pool than baseball, and so they were already prepared for this. And then it's like, do I want to play? I would guess that the rates of seniors coming back in softball is probably lower than baseball. I don't know where you fall on that.
Yeah, I mean, I think I think the realization of to play after college for softball is just, I don't know how much of a goal it is for as many of those girls as it would be for the guys.
Yeah.
Just from growing up, being around guys that wanted to play, professional baseball, like those are the people you idolize. I don't know. I'm not around softball. I'm around softball a little bit, but not nearly as much maybe as you or somebody else, where these girls coming up wanting to be, Jenny Finch and play for the Chicago Bandits and the Pride. I mean, pardon my ignorance. I don't know all the teams in the professional softball league.
Yeah,
even
it's
though
just
we have one
it's a
here.
smaller pool. Yeah, for sure.
I know there were 6 teams in the women's professional league last year. I think there's only 4 teams this year. And we are, just for anyone who doesn't know, I'm about 10 minutes away from the stadium where the Bandits play. And they draw the best in professional softball. I believe they're the most popular. They've been around the longest since I was in college. And the games are fun. I've been to a game. I mean, it's a good time. It's a cool atmosphere. The girls are talented. I mean, the games are really, really fast-paced, competitive games. But I don't know how many of those girls had dreams of being a professional softball player before the opportunity presented itself, once they got into college. I know a few of the girls that were in the league that are still in the league, and, they're super athletic. They're, really personable girls. They've got a lot of talent. They've got a lot to offer. But like you said, for the girls that aren't in the, top 20 of college softball teams, I got to imagine life moves on. And I don't know how many of them, like I said, for all sports, how many of them are going to want to come back and take on the debt?
Yeah. Yeah, it's very real. And you wonder if more baseball guys, because I heard this little thought floating around is, will any of these college seniors just turn to indie ball and try to jump into indie ball and see what they can do and just get quickly signed out of there? I think that's probably realistic for some of the best ones, or what they can do if they can jump onto an indie ball team in April. At the end, well, I mean, that'd be Atlantic League season at the end of April, but just unrealistic that even they'll be going then. So I guess that's less of an issue now. But yeah, I don't know. There's just a lot of uncertainty. Well, Robert, what are we going to call this thing?
I can't see anybody's messages here. I've got to imagine there's some good.
There weren't many. We're not that popular. We got like 4 hearts on Periscope, and I don't really know how to view the YouTube one. I'm looking on Restream, so we're using Restream here to simultaneously go to YouTube and Periscope at the same time. I think YouTube's working, but if it's not, then oh well. These things happen. But yeah, we're at least on Twitter live, and so we're good there. But for all of you out there in Twitter land and maybe YouTube land, thank you for watching. I think this is going to happen again. Robert, is this going to happen again?
This has to happen again. I've got so many things I want to talk about. You don't even know.
Yeah, you're just cooped up in your little dungeon out there in Chicago.
I'm in my bunker.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us today. Stay safe out there. Self-quarantine. I'm going to include myself in that group. And we will catch you next time on this soon-to-be-named YouTube show / I'm kind of leaning more towards like this is a YouTube show rather than a podcast. Obviously, this is going to be in my podcast tomorrow. I'm going to put it on Dear Baseball Gods for now. But YouTube?
This might be on ESPN if there's no TV, no
Your boy Scott Adams does his Periscope. That's his thing. He doesn't really do a podcast, does he?
No, he does Periscope. We can have him on. I'll call him.
Yeah, call Scott Adams. Yeah.
Yes.
Do that. I'm sure he'll take your call. All right, everyone. I'm Dan Blewett.
I'm Bobby Stevens.
See you next time.
Take care.